Hello and welcome to my brand new podcast, Your Career, Your Rules, period, in which I invite leaders across various fields, industries, and life in general. The main objective of this podcast is to help parents and for young adults who are still figuring out a path for themselves. In my very first podcast, I'm absolutely delighted to call upon my childhood buddy, my schoolmate, and my best friend for many, many years, Raghunandan. Raghu is currently a senior director in a leadership role in Dover Corporation, Bangalore. In this conversation, Raghu talks about some of his biggest wins, his failures, being a trusted partner, his growing up years, juggling studies and cricket, his fears, how he survived with $22 in his pocket in the summer of 1999 in the US as a student, and plenty of other things for someone who is still figuring out a path in their life. Personally, it was a homecoming conversation for me with my best friend, and I realized that there is so much more I still don't know about him. So, without delaying this any further, let's dive into the conversation right away with Raghu. And I hope you fully enjoy this. Hey, Raghu, welcome to my podcast. I call this as Your Career, Your Rules. Thank you for being my first guest on this show. Uh, for people who don't know you, let me first tell them that you're my school classmate. So we've spent around 13, 14 years together in school and then a part of college. So you're someone that I know really well, and I've spent a lot of time with you. So, Raghu, how is life going at this point in time?
Hey Shashi, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to talk to you always, as always. And when we first chatted about this talk, the thing that resonated was that there is entropy with Raghu and clarity with Shashi, right? So that is what I kind of bring to the table. But it's been great knowing you forever as a childhood buddy, and really looking forward to this conversation and sharing more openly.
Super, super, Raghu. So, Raghu, for people who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Raghunandan, short name Raghu, and I'm one of the senior directors in Dover Corporation. So this is a American-based multinational company. I'm one of the leaders here trying to drive strategy and business for a large-scale manufacturing business unit in the supply chain. And I've had about 25 years in the industry doing various things. Um, and on a personal note, I have my wife, Megha, and two kids. The elder one is Dhruv, who is an 18-year-old, at the peak of his teens, and a younger one who is 10 years old, Riti. Right? So God has given me a lot more than what I asked for, but this is what I'm clicking on.
Super, super cute family. So, Raghu, let's start with, you know, what's been your biggest win or failure so far in life?
So there have been both. I mean, I've experienced life in both directions, several wins and several losses. I don't count my losses because I use them as stepping stones as I work my way through in this journey called life. And the biggest thing that I've earned, whether it is the family, whether it is the social network, whether it is um, stature within the society. I mean, those are things that over a time you'll realize that you'll gain. Everybody will gain. But the key elements that I really look forward to is being a trusted partner And that is what I really count myself as in any of these relationships that I work on, whether it is with individuals or with organizations. And if somebody counts as me as a trusted partner, you're going to get more value. And I get more value from being a trusted partner. That has been the biggest wins that, it is immeasurable. And this is a self-discovery process. And as a failure, I mean, there have been many circumstances, those are stepping stones. I wouldn't call them as failures, those are experiences that I've learned. And it has actually helped me negotiate and maneuver in a roller coaster life that I've probably lived. We can talk more about those experiences that I call. I mean, those are real life experiences. I wouldn't count on my failures at all. Right. So every day there's a learning experience that I live.
Super,
Right?
super. So, Raghu, I mean, see, my audience is primarily parents of young adults. Okay, people like you and me, right? Both of us have 16 to 18-year-old kids right now, and uh, it's in a way important for us as senior professionals in the industry that life is not a straight line and career is not a straight line. So help me uh, understand and talk about how you went through these growing years, because I've known you as somebody who played a lot of cricket during those early days. I mean, close to being professional, right?
Mhm.
I still remember the mornings that you used to go there or the evenings that you used to go there, and you had to balance your studies and you had to go through your own journey.
Yeah,
Talk to us about how it was as a growing young adult.
absolutely. So let me narrate this as some life experiences, right? Um, Rewind from when I can jog my memory the lane. I was a very young, shy kid going into schools, the primary school and the middle school, and I can relate to situations wherein do people even need to take tests? What if situations that if I don't score well, will my class feel that this here is this guy who's walking up trying to receive his answer sheets um, from the teacher, and hey, what's your score, what's your score, what's your score? So is life all about scores? So that was the big question mark. And I would dread, being a very tall guy, I would dread walking up from the last bench to receive the answer paper from our school teachers. And it was a natural phenomenon of fear that gradually kind of sets in. So just bear with me a little because I'll kind of
Yeah,
narrate
it's
emotions
absolutely.
because that's what we are. I mean, we are humans, we go through these emotions. So my life journey, I'll just spare a few minutes trying to narrate what emotions are.
Hmm.
So the fear set in very early as foundational elements in my primary years. Up until the first shock, I mean, there have been many, many incidents and situations that have shaped me as an individual. That was in my seventh grade, potentially about 10 years or so. That's when I saw my mother who was intubated, which is your backbone. She was intubated, going
Hmm.
through a open heart surgery, and those days in what is known as the Vellore CMC hospital, walking up as a 10-year-old kid, seeing your mother, um, whom you had to lift your hand. You could not recognize your mother. I mean, that was the first shock of my life. And coming out of the hospital, the only thing that I would shy away was that, what in the world are we trying to do to her? That's when I realized that, there's something that I don't know.
Hmm.
And I realized that if there's anything at all, I got to be a doctor. And that is the natural phenomenon that everybody would want to become somebody trying to help.
Hmm.
That was my first self-discovery. So if there are, anybody, I request the audience to take a piece of pen and paper because I will use certain words which will help you realize what clarity means through Shashi and so on. Right? right words as you kind of listen into this cast. And then at the same time, I come back, I see the 1983 Cricket World Cup and the 1987 Cricket World Cup. So it's like two extremes. I kind of rattle between two extremes. I see the joy and passion of victory. I see the joy and passion of game theory that is put to play. I see
Mm.
the joy and passion of how people can be really happy when the Indian cricket team won the World Cup. So on a personal note, there have been certain channels that were set. On a career note, there were certain channels that was, shades of gray. And that's what I term as entropy. I mean, entropy has been there throughout our lives. And
Absolutely.
it started, instilling the seeds of game theory within me right from that time. And I realized that I need to get over the fear of collecting my answer sheets. And that's when I met you, Shashi, when you were scoring really well in math and Sanskrit and some of the other subjects, where you would proudly walk up and receive, hey, come on, this is something that is for me. So that's when I started discovering that, you had that niche to go win. And many of our, peers within the class, they were doing much, much well. And that kind of instilled this, okay, I think I can do. The can do attitude comes in over a period in time. So that's when, when we got really close within those years. And then we finished our 10th and 12th together. And the second turning point was in my 10th standard when I became the school captain playing cricket. So that was basically a chest thumping moment. At that age, young age, these are either, victories that you really feel either proud of, or you feel that, okay, there is this one-upmanship. There's always that up and down experience that one goes through. But
Mm.
very shortly, I realized that, it was very easy for me to fall down
Mm.
because there were individual performances as well as team performances that actually mattered when you work as a team. So that taught me the capability to put the team together, instill the team together, and do the best. And then as a 12th grader, you know, family pressures to ensure that, you get on the path of an engineer or a medicine, get through studies and so on. Then eventually somehow I made it through engineering. And that shaped my career quite a bit because again, that was the peak when I was the captain of the school college cricket team. There was razor sharp focus on studies as well. So it was like a railway track that was chugging along several distances.
Mm.
And then the hunger between the 10th grade and the engineering, I didn't want to give that up because I still remember that I have to make something, big in life. I want to be somebody of service to the society. Too bad that I didn't become a doctor because I was forced to get into an engineering seat. So there were failures all the way along. But nevertheless, I turned out to becoming the second student or the second in my engineering college of 120 students, right?
Wow.
So I was languishing somewhere around 15th or 20th through the 6 semesters, but eventually landed up being second. I didn't expect that.
Wow.
So wins come through all the way, despite persistent attempts to do better and better and better. And that is one thing that I was instilled within the family who played a significant part of giving the best that you could, right? Um, yeah, with that, I think there was a lot of learning in the early phases. And eventually, I went on to do my master's degree in the MS in the US. Again, those were transitions. I did my mechanical engineering, eventually had to go through a transition,
Mm.
got my computer science degree, and so on. So those were formative years. So yeah, I mean, those are formative years that actually gave me a sense of losses all the way along and simple victories, but still, it actually gave me a lot of pride in what I did. Um, but of course, there have been many other phases that kind of worked our way through. So we'll talk through those situations. But that was the peak of my career, Shashi. And that's when I ended at the age of 22 with a master's degree. And I still remember telling my parents that, you have many of your peers and several in the family members who believe that, a career in the US is a big degree. So let me go have one. Um, so that was my negotiation with my parents, and that's the only motivation to just go after certain goals that I had to tie into.
Super. So, so Raghu, I mean, there were three things, right? One is you wanted to be a doctor, okay? And then you were really good in cricket, and I know that because I've seen you playing, and you're the captain of the college. You were an all-rounder. You're playing for city cricketers. Uh, City cricketers had one or two of them which represented the country also. So,
India, two of them.
yeah, two of them. So, you were in the same circle as them, and you were like having coffee and tea after practice sessions with them. And you're very close to getting into that route. And then finally, engineering, right? Now, one of the things that students or kids struggle with is choosing the right career. How did you go about making a decision? Was it natural? Was it uh, forced by family? What were the situations in which you took this decision, and how did you take this?
So, excellent thoughts, right? So, I think it is a combination of several factors. So, I had three paths to choose. One is an academic career. Second is a sports profession. Third is, either staying with the norm or trying to carve out something on my own, right? So these were the three paths that were laid out. Firstly, um, I was lucky enough to be born in a family which had some stalwarts in the industry as well. There were people who actually were the founding members of Titan. Um, my dad was an executive at the Indian telephone industry, so he was second to rank, besides the chairman. So in many cases, he was the number one guy. So somehow it just instilled with the notion. There's so much pressure that was thrusted that you got to be the number one guy. I mean, who else can you kind of surpass? Either you become the number one, or the somewhere from 99 or 1,000 or whatever be the case.
Mm,
So that is the pressure that kept on mounting within the family.
mm,
Now it's a choice that I had to make. Either I work towards becoming either the number one or the number two, or the remaining 99.
mm,
The fact remains that the family support was extreme to the effect that being number one or number two is not the ultimate goal in life. Because
mm,
I saw that, these are the two people amongst the 100 others in the family that they're not number one or number two in their life, but
mm,
they still lived a very happy and a contented life.
mm,
So that gave me the ability to think and rule out options, right? And my family was extremely supportive of the fact that any option that you choose, you better be the best, right? And there are no two ways about it. So that way, it helped me make my decisions much more easier, which means that I decided sporting career way back in the 80s or the 90s could not give us livelihood. And even though I had some of my cohorts who were potential players for India, it was extreme struggle. And physically, although there were elements of um, flourishes that I had within my sporting career, I realized it took a severe toll on my physical health and many of the other priorities. So then I had to define what the priorities are going to be.
And
Right.
at what age did you decide this?
This was in my 15 through 17 that I started ruling out options that
Mm.
these are things that I'm not going to do.
That's quite young to start taking decisions on your own, right, Raghu? How did you how did
It,
you
it
get
is.
so? clear about these things.
It is essentially, as I told you, the fact that what are going to be things that you'll add in your basket as you work on your journey. What are things that's a distant see and enjoy. So I used to be, we used to, I mean, my dad and I used to walk on what is known as the window shopping. There are
Hmm.
things that you can have, but it stays in the window, right? But you cannot own them.
Somebody else's.
So that kind of instilled the fact that yes, there are things that are there in life that
Hmm.
you cannot have everything.
Hmm.
It is just going to be a window dressing or things that you will shop. Let it remain on a window. But there are things that you can only stack and store only so much in your baggage.
Hmm.
So that kind of helped me make decisions through my life
Through elimination primarily.
towards elimination because you know what your strengths are. It was not easy. It is not that it would happen
Hmm.
one night waking up in the morning and then you realize that you have coffee and okay, today I'm going to do this tomorrow. That's not going to be the way that it works.
Hmm.
And yet I did not make the right decisions on certain aspects. There were, you
Like.
know, um, the fitness regime that I really should have worked upon. I closed that. I wish I had instilled on, being physically fit.
Hmm.
Because now, I mean, when I'm mid 40s or, late 40s, I realize that that is something that I wish I had not closed. Um, because academics took priority, although there was academics, I learned from the present age kids that, they kind of balance both.
Hmm.
That's a key learning that you cannot just be looking one dimensional. You need to be looking multidimensional. You need to be looking at what your priorities are.
Right.
um, there are 10 things, but in that you need to figure out what is the top three, and it keeps changing. It may change, but that's fine. But the moment you close doors on certain things, you're never going to open that book again or the
Hmm.
chapter again.
Hmm.
So I realized that I wish I had invested a little more on fitness. I wish I had invested a little more on finance. I wish I had invested a little more of the broader learning of networking because it was one dimensional networking with my friends. Although it was window dressed, I would talk to, a small set of people, but there were a lot of friends that I was not connected with. And that learning with my peer group or our seniors, I mean, including our seniors, there were several of them whom I realized as we worked our way through beyond our college timeframe or in my pre-university or during university,
Hmm.
there was a network who maintained relationships with their seniors. They learned from them,
Hmm.
right? And we would shy away from them.
Hmm.
So those are things that I did not consider as opportunities. Those are things that I felt that it is not going to give me value. And those were those that I closed. I
I
wish I
don't
had
think,
closed those.
I don't think at that time we even knew about networking, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we were happy
So
sitting in our rooms and doing whatever we wanted or playing on the field with a fixed set of people.
yeah, the focus was razor sharp. But at the same time, the good thing that our school did was, it would send or it would allow students to go on, picnics or long tours. I
Hmm.
still remember traveling to Goa, Mumbai as a sixth grader, along with the 10th standard students. Schools facilitated such trips.
Yeah.
And I still remember, fighting for the vada pav as a young kid with the 10th graders. And I still made those friends. Those friends are still, my cousins' batchmates. So that's how there was confidence within the family that I could
Hmm.
travel with them.
Hmm.
But the fact is, the schools facilitated. It gave opportunities to network,
Right.
and although my sisters or my cousins they studied in the same school, many of their friends became very friendly to me,
Hmm.
and I wish I had stayed connected with them much longer to define a career path maybe.
Super.
Yeah.
So Raghu, you went to the US. You did all the hard work. Going to the US in those times, mid 90s, was the thing, right? And you did all the hard work to get there. And then you came back.
Yeah.
So um, you spent in dollars and came back and earned in rupees. So what was going in your head at that point in time? Why did you do that?
Sure. So the privilege that I had was that 90% of my cousins were all settled in the US.
Hmm.
I was the lone guy, but I wanted that experience. No matter what, I wanted that experience. And before I stepped on the US soil, there were situations that closed doors on me, or opportunities they closed doors on me, which means I couldn't get into some of the best universities that I wanted to, although I applied. I
And why
did not.
was
I
that?
mean,
Why was
I
that?
just I didn't score well. It was as simple as that.
Okay.
Although my engineering degree fetched me great scores, but from a holistic learning, whether it was the GREs, the SATs, or whatever be the case,
Hmm.
I was still not in the league that I could get into the top leagues.
Hmm.
But nevertheless, I have this aspiration to scale and grow. So some of the universities closed doors on me, but eventually I realized, okay, so let me get an entry into one of the universities. It was not easy for my parents or retired parents to fund. Um, I, I mean, in principle, there's always this familial notion that seeking loan was a big challenge that does exist in our societies.
Hmm.
Although the banks have opened up, and there are many other collaterals that can be derived to kind of seek loans nowadays. Times have changed. Those are situations then. Several doors closed, two doors were open, and then I realized that I had to go. So once I go there, there was only one semester, although a typical MS is a 2 to 3 semester experience that one has to go through before they can get a master's degree. Um, and I realized again there I failed. Um, and guess what? This was in English language.
Oh my God. Hmm.
This was in written English language. Given the fact that very few foreign students were getting enrolled, I was asked to take a course and a few credits in that. Although many of the other passing or the certification exams cleared me, they wanted those courses to be filled with seats. So eventually, I had to take some of those courses. Eventually, that's another failure. You realize that you keep winning, 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 but eventually some things will pull you down.
Hmm.
Finish that course. Um, Again, going back in the journey, before I stepped on the soil, I had made a decision that I'm going to return back. My life is not going to be in the US. So that's the prelude to actually.
And why
Uh,
why was it so? Why was it because your parents were here? What was the drive behind? I've
so
never seen people coming back to India in those days.
so one was, yes, my parents. My dad was a passionate patriot. Um, Although he did not force me to return back, but it kind of gave me an impression that you're born in a country, you need to take pride in what you deliver to the space that you are in. It could have put me in Africa, it could have put me in Mozambique, it could have put me in Mongolia, it could have put me anywhere, and this life could have put me anywhere. And I connected that with the service mindset that really anchored me in my seventh grade 10th standard. Shock, I said I need to give it back to the Indian society.
Hmm.
And that was so deeply rooted, Shashi, that it stays even with me
And
forever.
why was that? Was it anything that one of the teachers said, any chapters that you read? Wow, what instilled that
The
patriotism?
the patriotism is truly with, again, comparing what kind of a lifestyle my cousins lived, comparing what kind of a relationship that people lived,
The
comparing
US,
with what kind of, sorry,
in the US, you're saying.
in the US.
Hmm.
So there is so much of social. I mean, today we are talking about WhatsApp, we are talking about internet Zoom calls. Those days we had to go to an STD booth to
Yeah.
make phone calls to my own sister. I had to do that. And it was an international call. You talk for 10 minutes, you pay $100. So those were the times. And it was tough. And despite that, we made attempts to connect and figure out and realize it was letters, paper letters that we had to write. There was so much of exchanges that every Saturday and Sunday, it was not the web series or the YouTube. I mean, YouTube came in late 2000s or mid 2000s, but we never got so much of information. We were always trying to hunt for information
Mm.
through the snail mails or through phone conversations or through physical discussions that we were having whenever there was a
Mm.
gathering. But the fact remained, going back to your question, why did I make the decision not to stay and make a livelihood? I realized that's not going to be my cup of tea. um, I drew a boundary that at some stage I'm going to return. I don't know when. I had no clue. Again, that's the entropy part. I had no clue when I'm going to return, but I did not want to, create a family and live my life in the US. I wanted to give it back, and I knew that this notion of India being a developing nation, um, the US being a developed nation. So why not? Why is it that India cannot be a developed nation? Why is it that as citizens we cannot do things good for our country? Why is it that the fundamental rights is always taking a backseat, or fundamental duty is taking a backseat? We always look for rights.
Mm.
Those questions, it kept resonating in my mind as to what is it that we are trying to do in this world,
Mm.
right? Are we always in a receiving spree, or are we some stage can we get back to giving? It is a balance. I mean, it's not that you always be on the receiving end. You can keep getting a lot of benefits from what you do, but you need to start giving. Some stage you need to give in, and that's the joy of giving. I keep reading some of these philosophical thoughts. The joy of giving is much much more, and over time everybody will realize that. And that's when I realized, look, I mean, if I have to give it back, again, relating back to the hospital experience that I had, it kind of keeps bringing. That's my North Star, Shashi.
Mm.
If there's anything, so you need to give it back, um, as long
Before
as
it's,
as I can.
I said before it's too late.
Yes, absolutely.
Got it. So Raghu, how I know that when you came back to India, it was a bold decision. You probably came back with no job in hand when you came, right? Uh, how did you go about dealing with it, firstly, how, in a way to say, how tough the social environment is, right?
Sure.
Sure, hundreds of people would have said, "What the hell are you doing?" Right?
Yeah.
Uh, and then you come back and then you start figuring out what to do next. How did you
Yeah.
go about landing a job? What was the thought process? Talk to me about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'll narrate a story that I experienced. First semester, there is loan on the table. I need to repay the loan. $22 in my pocket. I sit in a soccer field in the United States without any funding for my there's this living expenses or tuition fees. Typically, that's what most of the students go through, right?
And when was this, Raghu? Which year of MS was this?
This was my first semester. This was way back in the year 1999.
Hmm.
1998 Christmas, I was in the US. I burned the loan that my dad took, pledging the house. That was the first semester as a failed student in English, but I had to kind of repay back. So this was February of 1999 was when I had to sit in the field. And there was another professor who had promised there's going to be funding and so on. So I had to move from one school to the other school. It's a long story, but eventually you realize that $22 in your pocket, I can't keep taking more loans. And what do? You start knocking doors. That is in a university where there are at least a couple of hundred other Indian students who have not received any loan. And I kept knocking doors way late in the night. It was 10 o'clock in the night. It was in one of the optics department of one of the universities. There's this professor who is, tapping his way along. What has optics got to do with computer science? No relation. And then this gentleman realizes, okay, let me leverage this student in getting some work done. And okay, this is some programming language that I had no clue. I said, I can give you confidence. Give me a week. I can learn this because my ability to learn is my strength. So let me figure out, and I'll do your work. Don't pay me for 15 days to a month, but I need my tuition fees. Living, I will figure out what I can do. So it was a negotiation. Nothing in this world works without negotiation. So he said, let me call you back tomorrow morning. But as I walked back home, it was 11 o'clock in the night. He said, okay, you need to come in right now and pick up your offer letter. So he gave me that offer. That's when I realized that opportunities don't come to you. You need to knock the doors. It's not
Mm,
always that it comes to you. You need to go in search of opportunities when things don't work your way.
right, right.
That experience taught me that anything can be done, whether it is within India, whether it is any part of the globe. When I return back, there's no job. I don't care. I need to go hunt because that's what we are born hunters as human beings. We need to go find something. We need to discover ourselves. If I was stuck on the fact that this is the only job that I'm going to be working on, I would never be the case. Now, the good side of the story is while I was, running through a lot of losses, no money on the table, no tuition fees, there's a lot of emotion that is drained. I happened to get a research assistant, which is the highest scholarship for both tuition fees or living expenses for any Indian student in that university. A lot of, you know, eyebrows were raised. Who's this guy? How could he do it? I mean, there's so many people standing in the line. You couldn't do it, but opportunities. Hey, these are opportunities that you need to find. That's how innovation works. That's how the world runs.
And that
And
happened because you knocked the doors.
that happens only because I knocked the doors. Every single door. It doesn't matter what the door is. You decide. Once you have the power or the opportunity, you get the right to choose. Until then, I did not have the right to choose
Hmm.
whether the opportunity is going to help me or it is going to put me down the path in a rut. Right?
Awesome. Awesome. So now when you look back, Raghu, for a moment, let's assume that you did not get that scholarship with that prof. What would you have done?
So, assuming that had I not gotten that opportunity, it was just another day, a bad day. Keep trying,
Keep
keep
trying.
trying, keep figuring out
Awesome.
other avenues, other opportunities. There were various other opportunities that actually, I mean, that was the highest. Besides that, I had other menial jobs, working in Pizza Hut, doing, chores, doing some websites that some department did not really care about. There were various things that I did, which is not in my book of principles. So I think those are things that you need to define in your book of principles as to what you are going to do, what you're not going to do. By then, I had learned that there are things that, again, this is early 20s. That's the best part of anybody's life that one goes through between the 20 to 30 age. Um, there's so much of growth, physical growth, and then your mental stability is also growing. So that you need to try. Entropy and inertia are things that has to be behind you. You need to figure out what you are, and that's the discovery part of it. I had no clue that I could do it, but only when I did it did I realize that I could do
Hmm. Got it. Got it. And the biggest takeaway for anyone watching this is keep knocking till you get something, right? Keep knocking the door and just don't think that the game is over till you get it,
it.
right?
Absolutely.
Super. So Raghu, fast forwarding to today, okay? Now you're a senior director in a fairly large organization. Uh, you are a part of the leadership team there. I'm sure you deal with a lot of Gen Z folks in your company. You hire them, train them, hopefully retain them, and so on and so forth. What's your view around how the new gen work culture has been for you? People have been in the new gen. What are the things that you're seeing?
Sure. So, very nice. I think, while it is kind of you to call the titles and the leadership, I think leadership comes from within all of us. And
Hmm.
I remember and recollect what we learned about a decade ago in one of my organizations. I don't know if you've studied penguins.
Mm.
Um, Penguins are natural leaders, and
Mm.
that's typical of what Linux choose as its logo, and how it is kind of evolved. Which means every soldier is a leader. So that's the culture that I've seen as a shift, a huge shift in the way that the world runs. There's nothing like um, leaders are somebody who have gained experience in organizations, and they've learned the way through. And when I sought out on some of the leadership roles, I realized that there is a huge shift in the way that the current generation, the present generation have emerged. We are learning equally.
Mm.
While there is this Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, Gen XY, whatever be the case, there's a lot of learning that we are going through. Because
Mm.
ultimately, it is a shared objective that we all need to meet within the organization.
Mm.
Now, 3 points. As we work our way through, there's a lot of learning. They have so much energy that is coming through the wealth of information. Today, the access to information is so high. We did not have Google Maps then. We had to go discover. Your foot had to be on the street. Today, you have people who can negotiate and navigate. So I'm just giving that as a metaphor or an analogy because the same information is available on the information highway. Secondly, while there is so much information, it is the cluttering effect that is actually hurting all of us. It doesn't matter what generation that we're in. It is cluttering to an extent that you have so much of data and information that is passing by you, you miss the detail.
Mm.
So just imagine being in a situation where you need to know where to hunt, how to fish, because that is the key ingredient to determining whether you're meeting these shared objectives. Um, and that is very, very clear. And some of the present age students that I work with, they bring to the table in a very much rapid manner. At the same time, the downside is that you get lost, and it's very easy to give up.
Mm.
The level of persistence, I think it comes only with experience and exposure,
Mm.
right? Um, the more you persist in solving problems, the more better that you are in figuring out how to solve problems. Don't be impatient. Try to be very patient. I'll give you an example of what I did. Um, while I was a research assistant, there's all this, gory things of what you could do. All of the fun part of it was behind me, but eventually I had to deliver. And this was what is known as the present age data science. I had to build some programs that had to meet certain capabilities.
Mm.
It took me close to 8 months before I could get a very simple program. Today, if you can relate that to what technology does, you can do it within 5 lines of code, right? But it took me 8 months to get outcomes, which means I had to persist, keep working on it, be persistent. I mean, that is what the time will evolve. You'll learn, you'll self-learn, you'll discover several failures as you go. But eventually, when we got it, we filed patents. So there is going to be outcomes, but you need to ensure that there is persistence. Now, coming back to the third thing, what I see in present age kids is there is immense amount of innovation.
Inefficiencies.
Inefficiencies will come with innovation, and very recently I went through
Sorry, did I hear you wrong? Did you say
innovation. I said innovation.
innovation?
Um, yes, but inefficiencies are there. I mean, I think the world that we lived when we started our careers versus what we now, I think there is ample opportunities to innovate. Now, through inefficiencies, you innovate.
Mm.
You are going to hit bottlenecks. That is the nature of the work that we work. Whether you are in an engineering field, whether you are a dentist, whether you are a cleaner on the street, whether there will be inefficiencies within the system that we live. I mean, it's a no-brainer. There will be inefficiencies in the political system that we live. There will be imperfections in the world. This world order is not the same as what it used to be in the past. Let's start with that as a baseline.
Mm.
Now, in that, how do you innovate? How do you get creative? How do you go after certain things that you need to, meet? That is where, your goal setting, your ability to turn outcomes, being result oriented, and, making the right decision. Not for yourself. It could be for yourself. Of course, you need to make decisions for yourself before you can choose a path. But making the right decision is perfectly fine. And in many cases in our organization, we call what is known as a redefine, right? It's what used to be defined in the past in the last decade or so. Now it is redefined because what was there in the past is not going to get you where you want to be.
Yeah.
Which means you need to be in this constant, continuous improvement spree, and that is essentially where the world is leading us.
Got it.
These are the three things that I strongly encourage that the present generations they bring to the table. We are learning in this journey as well. It's not that it is out there, but it's
Hmm.
extremely important for the next generation to kind of. That's how if you really look at how engineers get in, Shashi. I when I talk to a lot of first year and second year students through various forums that I connect with, they say, look, they don't need a degree certificate to tell them that they are entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
I was talking to somebody who used school uniforms from underprivileged kids or whatever to create bags. That is like wow moment for me when I was talking to. Okay, how many of us think about it? I mean, I have lived this life. The small kid is running an industry who's earning income through their studies. It's not about making big money. How do you make this world a better place? I mean, it was so the kid was not even looking at making money or becoming another entrepreneur like her dad, or he or she did not want to join the industry, whatever be the case. But the fact remains that there's this intent of making big. I mean, this is from an engineering student, and roll back 20 years. What am I doing? I mean, I'm trying to play cricket. I'm trying to score high. I'm trying to go to walk up to a lecturer and say, okay, give me good scores. That is the age that we lived in. This is a different age that we're living.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Raghu, I mean, when you when you're hiring, there are two or three questions in my mind, but let me ask it one by one. So, let's say when you're hiring the management trainees or graduate trainees, as you may call, what are the top three things that you look for?
Right. First, problem solving. Because if there is an appetite to acknowledge there's a problem, then somebody will solve it. That's 50% of what somebody can solve as problems.
Got it.
Then they'll figure out solutions. So if they cannot demonstrate the ability to solve problems, they'll not be able to solve problems, whether it is for somebody else. Second, the ability to communicate effectively. What used to be in the past, what was a technical capability in the past, is probably fourth or fifth in the equation. They need to communicate. They need to know what they're communicating. They need to be crisp and clear
Hmm.
in the manner that their ability to decipher and disseminate information, communication is the key.
Got it.
And the third thing is the ability to innovate.
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 Got it.
Because what we have built so far is not going to be sustainable in the next phase. The reason why we hire youngsters in any organization is to grow the business, because eventually this is a journey that we are not going to be sticking on to what we did, or we are not going to be sticking on to what our superiors or elders did. I mean, they moved on within their careers.
Hmm.
We are not going to be stuck on this product or the service or this business forever. We need to bring value. I mean, it's all about value generation.
Hmm.
Right? So
Absolutely.
the core of any individual in organizations, either that they have created or they co-create or they work with a different organization, is value creation. How do you create value? These are the three things. You need to be able to solve some problem, your problem or somebody else's problem. You need to ensure that there's clarity in what you communicate, and you need to be the driver. And when you're the driver, when you recognize that you can innovate, you can challenge status quo and question the way things are, you can innovate and bring things in a much more futuristic manner. I mean, just think of technologies that exist today. Just think of ways of dealing with problems today. All of this is disruptive. I mean, what we did in the past is no longer going to sustain for us in the next decade that we work our way through.
Super, super. So what you said was number one, problem solving. Number two, being able to communicate clearly as to what they're thinking or what they're doing. And finally, being able to innovate. So these are the three things that you said are the most important ones that you look for. Now, do you get people who have these three, or do you foresee, or are you facing issues in filling these three things when you hire people?
So yes, we do, which means that it's not that these are the only three things that we look for,
Right.
because there are several other complementary strengths that people bring to the table, whether it is networking, whether it is the technical know-how or the capability, whether it is their ability to persist in the problem solving. So those are the secondary or the residual factors. We kind of group them amongst the three. And there are many other things. I mean, people may not be able to communicate. I mean, it's not about plush English. It is not about the accent that really matters. It is about the content and the context,
Correct.
right? Um, there are people coming in from villages. I see India shining to the extent wherein people from remotest part of the country, they fit exceptionally well when compared to somebody from the greatest of the great colleges as it is advertised. I mean, I look for the depth in their content that they bring.
Is that because of the hunger that they have in them?
Absolutely, absolutely. The hunger to succeed, the hunger to set themselves goals, the hunger to go after things
Hmm.
and make a difference, right? That is the one that is going to really stand stead in the journey that we are in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Raghu, now let's say you have to advise the parents of this generation, and these are parents of kids who are either graduating or are about to get into a good graduation school. What would your advice be? Top three advices to these parents?
Um, so the context switches to parents. First thing is identify and listen to what the kid is talking, what the kid is not talking,
Hmm.
because it is not always that the verbal communication is the one that helps you understand what the strengths of the child is, right? There are several other behaviors, there are several other patterns that the kid will bring to the table that you will not see. Again, these are not, non-visual modes of communication that as parents we need to learn. And I'm learning, by the way. So I might sound as somebody who's giving a sermon, but no, I'm learning every single day. The second thing is um, positive strokes. It it significantly impacts a child. I mean, I experienced that. There was a lot of positive strokes that I received in this whole journey that I kept stumbling and rolling around. The positive strokes are the ones that constantly help me get up and walk and run. Those are things um, that are essential ingredients to grooming. I mean, just imagine a small sapling that you see. I mean, you will see a seed. Not every seed will kind of flourish and give you flowers or fruits. I mean, we are all a part of nature. You need to kind of put a stock. You need to ensure that the sapling kind of stays there. It gets the right nourishment and so on. That's precisely what it is. Just think of your child as a stock that is growing. Eventually, it will give you flowers and fruits, right? Don't nip it in the bud. And last but not the least, help the child connect and learn from various experiences. Now, what I mean by that is it could be traveling to different parts, connecting with different, type of people or same type of people that is there, That doesn't mean that you put them in 10 classes, 5 classes. In many cases, 0 classes will also help. You need to kind of modulate. Just think of this as, just imagine if somebody were to go full throttle in rock music in your house. Will you ever expect it? Maybe yes, you do, but for a classical singer, that is noise. So you
Absolutely.
need to be able to throttle and modulate.
It as per the kid's requirement. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that can happen only when they figure out what is their learning strength. I
Uh,
still remember some of our classmates that at that age, they really struggled to find their niche. They struggled because they were strongly influenced by, our physical trainers, the teachers, the parents were extremely demanding, extremely aggressive. That happens even today. No denial. I mean, those are things that's a perpetual, change that we need to drive within the society. But I'm seeing a lot more access to information. Help the child learn, because learning is a perpetual thing. Even to this day, I mean, I can give you an example, maybe probably getting beyond the context of the question that you have, Shashi, but in the last 3 years, again, I'm talking mid 50s, there's this gentleman who has a disability. I don't want to name, but whatever be the case, this gentleman is able to write books, and the disability is so bad that you need the person. He's 24 by 7 by 365 on a wheelchair. Um, 5 days a week, the person comes in to office sharp on the dot 9:30, exits by 5:30. Despite all this hybrid remote culture and other things that we talk about, the sense of discipline, what the power of mind can do, that is demonstrated by somebody who is completely physically disabled. And that is our learning experience that, we hired in one of the business groups 25 such individuals who are kind of, so this was a inclusive campaign that we ran. We had 25 of them. I mean, this is in a high tech industry. This is not even, a contract labor that I'm talking. If they can do high tech work, we don't have reasons to complain. So, which means that look at what the potential of individuals is. Um, and that's the message to parents, right? Identifying potential is not easy. And
of
again, three things: listen, help them learn, and
positive strokes.
positive strokes. Those are three things that I strongly believe are probably the top three that comes to my mind. There are many more, but yeah, this is what I feel
Got
are
it.
important.
Got it. So, Raghu, one last question from my side, and this is an important one from the perspective of helping the new generation of, graduates or undergraduates get to the next level. So, uh, while there are so many people coming out of colleges, especially engineering colleges, the number of jobs that are created is far, far lesser than the number of graduates graduating out of the country. Let's take India, for example. In a scenario like that, and when you're sitting wherever you're sitting at the helm of affairs in a certain organization, what do you think the kids should be doing to secure a position for themselves much before they get into this rat race of finding a job?
Look, I mean, I'm the last person to be giving advice to the present generation, but I can share experiences. That is going to be the forte here, because what got us here between the year 2000, that's when I got my first job. Um, and incidentally, I can tell you that life will bring you situations where it'll get you past. I mean, by the way, I was standing on top of World Trade Centers the day before it was bombed, right? So God gives us opportunities.
Right.
So, um, and that was 2001 or whatever would be the case. So I'm still alive. That itself is a blessing, which means that 2000 through 2025, there's been quarter of a century shift in the way things have worked in the past. Back yourself up. Do not stay in the realm of your house. That is the comfort zone. Figure out how you can get uncomfortable. And the very fact that you find somebody trusted, whether it is your parents, your friends, your colleagues, whoever it may be, that gave me solace that there's somebody who's there to listen to. Seek that very minute relationship, sound what is running in your mind. In many cases, you will find answers. You will discover yourself. And when you discover yourself, figure out how you can get uncomfortable, get to solutions, um, and what can you do better, and reincarnate yourself. That's what I would call. A caterpillar also sheds, a snake also sheds its skin. There are many other humans we also shed as skin. We need to figure out how we rediscover ourselves, and that is the message, because there's always a day when you're going to outshine yourself, and you'll realize that you did a lot better to yourself than anybody else. Right?
Super. And if anybody wants to reach you, how do you think they can reach you, Raghu?
Anytime, I will certainly share my mobile number or my personal email. So very happy to share situations, or what is it that I can use as a sounding board. Again, I'm not perfect. That's the baseline, which means that if you think that if there are ways that can help, why not give it a shot? I mean, life is a game. Every time I walk into a cricket field, I would want to hit a six and get out, or not even get out, keep scoring hundreds. It's not going to come. I mean, I wish I'd scored 100, but even if I face 50 balls, you're not going to get 100 until you score. So that is the attitude that I encourage. But I'm more than happy to share my mobile number or email so we can connect.
Super. On that note, I remember that in one of the school tournaments, inter-school tournaments, I got you run out, uh, playing really well. I still feel bad about it.
uh, that is what is there. I mean, that is there has to be an end somewhere. So I think, but nevertheless, we scored a lot more runs. I still remember we scored a lot more runs together, building partnerships. And this is one such journey that we are in, right?
Super. One final word from you, Raghu. Anything that you want to say to uh, the young adults of today or the parents of young adults? One final line from you.
2025, all the best to everybody who's listening in. The very fact that you're giving your time to listen into some of this podcast itself is it tells us that this is something that you want to drive change. Change is persistent. Find ways and avenues that you go after your goals. I wish you all the best in what you're striving for. There is always positivity in the way the world is shaping up, and I'm a true believer in a lot of positive things that is ahead of us. Treat everything that happened before today as things that you learned something, and keep working towards your goals. All the best.
Super. On that note, thank you so much, Raghu, for helping me kickstarting this new journey that I have started, which is the podcast. And I call this podcast as Your Career, Your Rules, period. Right. So thank you so much for all the wonderful thoughts that you shared with me. And I'm absolutely sure that we'll have you again.
Absolutely, Shashi, and great job. I mean, really fantastic, and happy to see that you're kind of sowing the seeds for the next generation. I'm sure this generations will continue to flourish under your able guidance and mentorship. Wishing you the very best in clarity with Shashi. All the best.
Thank you so much, Raghu. Thank you so much.